This is More Than Money with Mapalo Maku, brought to you by Sasfin Wealth.
Welcome to More Than Money. I'm Mapalo Maku, a personal finance columnist, and I love having money conversations that change people's perspective about finances. Why am I doing this podcast, you might ask? To talk about money. Not the paper stuff. I mean the baggage, the feeling, the emotional, heart-wrenching stuff. We find this conversation so uncomfortable to have, which is why on this podcast, I have decided to have this very difficult conversations. We are going to have some difficult discussions because better money conversations lead to better money confidence, and healthy money dialogue leads to healthy money decisions. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Jason Stewart, and he is the co-founder of Have You Heard? Jason, welcome.
Thank you, Mapalo. Very excited to be here.
You have been in the industry for a very long time. What are some of the trends that you've seen change over the years, and what are some of the things that you're picking up?
Within the advertising industry, I think I'll speak to financially. It's margins are getting tighter. And there is more focus on making sure that you're getting a return for every rand that is spent. That we have obviously an economic challenge. So the heydays of advertising 20, 30 years ago is no longer around. Now you're really having to show your performance as an advertising or marketing agency and make sure that you're delivering on what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's not the sexy answer that you're looking for, but I'm skewing that to finance, yeah.
Goodness. So, I mean, you're making anyone who's listening to this podcast think to themselves, is a career in marketing something that I want to get into? But do you enjoy what you do? And how did you get into it? And is it a space that, has really added to you that you still love?
So the way that I got into advertising was because I'm on an entrepreneur at heart. My father was an entrepreneur. I grew up working in his, he had some clothing and shoe stores. Every holiday was spent there working and seeing what he was doing. And I wanted to follow business, but I didn't want to study finance, and I enjoyed the creative side of it and the people side of it. So that was kind of the natural route. Advertising is more the creative side of business. And then when I was about 27, I started an ad agency because I'd been working for a few ad agencies and thought there's got to be an easier way to make money than work 20 hours a day for a small salary. So I started my ad agency and realized I was working 24 hours a day for even less money, but have slowly built it up. It's been 17 years now, and I do enjoy it. It's obviously the 9-to-5 grind is very different to what I'm doing right now, because the Have You Heard group is a group of different smaller agencies and one big agency. And so that's managing partnerships and the strategic vision and making sure that we're executing along that. And then probably most exciting is, and this is what really stimulates me, is we've developed a product company. So for the last 16, 17 years, we've been helping products and brands grow their business through advertising. And now we're doing that for ourselves and putting our money where our mouth is. And we have launched our own products. And so that is incredibly stimulating because we're learning a completely new field. But it's putting me back in the trenches from, doing a startup within a very big, successful agency itself.
Yes. And I mean, how different is it when, you're working with a client that has a product, but now you yourself have a product? I mean, like it must be a big learning curve because now it is your own, right?
Yes, it's a huge learning curve because you also take so many things for granted and you don't understand the complexity that goes into developing a product. So if you're working in an ad agency, you can roll your eyes at a client thinking that they don't understand what you're trying to do. But the truth is, as advertisers, we don't understand what's going on within product development, within sales, and in the retail and selling to the customer. So it's understanding that complexity, which has been incredibly valuable. But from our side, what has been nice is we do not have a limitation on the products that we develop. So we can make sure that we develop the best product in the world, and we have complete control over that. Often as an ad agency, you're trying to put makeup on a bad product. But now we can start at the very top and make sure that the products that we develop and bring in are world-class and of the best. The other challenge, though, is I've got a full-fledged ad agency behind me, but I'm not a paying client because I am, the agency is the client. Our work always gets put to the last, and we can't afford those big budgets. But it's incredibly valuable because every rand that I spend with our own products, we have to make that return. So it's knowing what works and generating the highest returns out of the lowest possible budgets, which is the ultimate test, because then that's where the creativity and the strategic understanding comes from.
Before we get into the gist of building a business, I want to go back to your childhood, having worked for your dad when you were coming back from school, that sort of thing. Did you guys talk about money?
We didn't really, no. Money was, I guess, not really spoken about. And I was always involved in my father's businesses. And I think he grew up in a challenging childhood. So money didn't come easy to him either. But he built up a lot of businesses through a lot of hard work. And what was a very common theme in our family was hard work and working 20-hour days and making it succeed. And I think his perception of money was that money was very hard to come by. It was going to be very difficult. Kind of gave me the perception that money was a hostile, rude neighbor that you kind of had to live with, but it wasn't a friendly kind of experience. And then being an entrepreneur as well, as I grew up into running my own business, there's that fear attached of scarcity and not having enough at the end of the month. And slowly over time, that has changed. The way that I view money now is not an emotional relationship. It's like oxygen. You can't live without it. If you don't have money, you suffocate. It's extremely stressful. If you do have money, you can live, you can move, you can do things. And so for me, money is a means to an end. And I think what I've learned and what I'm trying to pass on to my children is that money is a tool that if you understand how to use it, it can give you things, not material things, but it can make life easier and it can move you to places and give you opportunities. And so that's what I'm trying to teach them is how to look at money like it's a tap that you know how to open up and use for yourself, yeah.
That is incredible because you were very self-aware around, the scarcity and limitations, and you try to overcome that. And what you're trying to impart to your kids is something completely different so that they can have a better relationship with money. But as someone who employs a lot of people, how stressful does money how stressful is it when it comes to, you know that these people are relying on you to put food on their table? What kind of stress do you carry on a regular basis?
Cheapest, yeah. So I think I'm at the point now where it's numb. And not in a bad way, but because I've been on my entrepreneurial journey with a partner of mine for 17 years. And during that time, there have been many instances where we've looked at, total financial demise potentially. And I think that's the story with a lot of entrepreneurs is you don't know what's going to happen, and things happen that go wrong, and, COVID hits and that. So the stress of holding people's livelihoods is hugely, it weighs on you. And I often get to the end of the month, not now anymore, but in the earlier days, everyone gets excited for payday. As an entrepreneurial business owner, that's your worst day because all that money's going out and you need to make sure that you collect it. But I think that's one of the things as well that has been not the nicest experience to go through of the panic around money, but being able to stare that fear in the face, look at potential massive financial problems that you'll have as a company, and then to strategically and creatively figure out a plan and then execute that through a lot of hard work and diligence and come out of that. And we've done that at numerous times over our journey. So we have the confidence now that if we get put in that situation, we can figure it out. There's always a solution. There's always a plan. And to not be frozen by fear and to just throw the chips in. And I think that's one of the remarkable things about South African entrepreneurs specifically. It's a tough environment, but we figure it out and we can make it happen. The weight is there, the responsibility is there, but it's not a fear, it's managed.
And throw that into having and starting a family. As an entrepreneur, having done this, it's much simpler when it's just yourself. Now, throw in kids in there and just how expensive it is to raise children. What was there a bit of a fear when you started having kids?
So I think it creeps up on you because you start a family. It's very exciting. And the first couple of years, it's not too expensive, but then you get school fees and then you get extramurals. And then it's like, wow, and these things ramp up. And I think it comes back down to your values. And I'm quite lucky with my wife. We are very much aligned in how we spend money. So I've heard you make the comments as well about cars. I do not, I see that as a waste of money. And would rather, like, I drive a little scooter. I live in Cape Town, so I'm close to work. But saving that $5,000 a month, can go into enriching educational experience for my kids, for example. So it's the values that drive you and the priorities of what you find that is important that you're able to spend. But yeah, it's managing that and not being caught up in the status game and ego of comparing yourself to others, and making sure that what brings you joy and your family joy and adds value is what you spend your money on, and cutting out senseless expenses. Yeah.
But I mean, that's a very sensible answer, right? But has there ever been an expenditure that you thought to yourself, goodness, maybe I could have gone without, but you did it anyway?
My wife would probably answer differently, but I'm probably too sensible and also frugal by nature of starting a business with no money. And I started in 2008 with the financial collapse. So my entire mentality is around, scarcity and doing what you can with most. But I'm also quite a simple guy. So like if I want to celebrate, I'm very happy to go to a bookstore and buy a few books or do a weekend away. I haven't done wild expenditure.
All right. You are a very sensible guy, Jason. And now,
too sensible, too boring.
And now with your wife, did you start talking about money from early on in the relationship? What were those conversations at the beginning of the relationship?
We probably didn't speak about it early enough, and it's one of those things, you're young and you don't have that wisdom to broach those subjects. But we do talk about it. She was working when we were married, and then when we had kids, we decided that she would look after the kids. It's a very important role. We wanted her to spend as much time as possible with our children. And the way that I view our money is it's our money. So whatever I earn, she has full access to, and we use it responsibly together. But I think the challenge was more on her side because she wasn't earning, she felt that pressure. So she went back to work when our kids were at the right age and has her own money that, we do essentially share, but it allows her the freedom to also purchase like she does. My work wife, though, is my business partner, Ryan, who we've probably had to walk a much tighter journey as business partners dealing with things. And I think that's where the conversations around money and very different approaches, because my wife and I have quite similar values. Ryan and I, similar but different. And that's been incredibly useful because we will look at situations very, very differently and then manage the conflict within that conversation to come to an agreement. Money is where people get emotional, and being able to look at money unemotionally is key.
Yes. And I mean, you've been working with Ryan for 17 years. Surely there must have been points in time when you didn't agree on something, especially on how to handle finances around the business. What has sort of taken you through the 17 years together?
So huge disagreements. And I think what we do very well is we fight well together. And when we say we fight well together, the first few years we didn't. And then we learned how to have proper conversations and how to have respect within those, and how to know that when we're discussing, it's not the final say, it's solutions that we're putting forward. And to work together to look at a problem or a direction from multiple different positions. So he comes from a completely opposite direction as I do, and then it's figuring out what is best and compromising for that. And it's really the maturity around having those difficult conversations well, and then supporting each other and moving forward. And if it doesn't work, knowing when it's not going to work and having triggers or indicators to jump out and change the plan.
How important is it to find the right partner? And when do you know when to leave if it's no longer a partnership that's working?
That is $1 million question. That's a great question, because it's kind of the same as choosing a partner for life. The person that you spend your life with, that's who you spend every day with. They impact you in everything that you do. And in a business, the stakes are high because it's around your future and your business. And you need to be very aligned. And a partner might be great for me, but not great for you. And so it's understanding what you both want out of it and the end goal that is aligned and that you respect each other. So we have had multiple partnerships, and it's people that are willing to collaborate and to work well together, not have ego, and care about the work and the effort, and want to work that journey. And you can't be petty in a partnership as well. You need to be able to lose fights to win the battle. So it is a very tricky thing. We've had partners that have succeeded and that have failed with us, and we were potentially bad partners to them as well for different reasons. But it's crucial. It's choosing the business that you want to invest in or work with, but making sure that the person that's leading that business is someone that you want to spend time with and that you respect. And I think importantly, you've seen them go through something bad, and you've seen their character, and that they're honest and that they're diligent. That is key. But it's hard to find those people. But there are many out there. There are many out there.
You are listening to More Than Money, a podcast collaboration brought to you by Sasfin Wealth. At Sasfin Wealth, we empower our clients to reach their global investment goals, to retire with dignity, and to leave a lasting legacy. If you would like to have real money conversations, visit sasfin.com/wealth and talk to us. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Choosing your partner, as in someone to get married to, also can determine your financial future. It can either be really great, or it can go terribly wrong. And I mean, earlier you mentioned that you have the same values. How did you know that you would handle money conversations in a good way between you and your wife?
In all honesty, if you ask me a deeper question of like, we've been married, I probably want to say 20 years, and it's been a very good marriage. I'm very happy that she said yes, and that we're together. But if you asked me 20 years ago if I'm sure, I didn't know. But I think the longer we're married, the more sure I am. So I think I got lucky, in all honesty, when you look at how people decide to get married to who they get married to, there's honestly very little thought. It's very emotional, which it should be. But my wife and I resonated with each other, a lot of it based on character and values as well. So I think that is aligned, and we've also compromised and met each other halfway. We also have a leadership consultancy agency where we go into businesses and we help develop leadership. So I have all these tools that we train people on how to handle different conflict. We use one of them, which is the talking stick. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. So when we fight bad, we use the talking stick, and it's extremely successful, but it takes a long time for somebody to get the other stick. But it all comes back down to respect and not wanting to be right, and about what's best for everyone.
Oftentimes, we talk about saying yes to opportunities. Have you had to say no to some things and it worked out for the best? And how long did it take you to learn to say no as an entrepreneur?
So I think the problem with being an entrepreneur is it's in your nature to have initiative and to go after opportunities and to say yes to everything. And in my life, I've said yes to pretty much everything, which has stood me in a lot of success, even if I've failed at things. And I think that's one of the most important pieces of advice I would give to my children, or to any young person, is say yes until you get to 35 or 40. Even if it's a failure, everything that you go through, you gain value from that. But looking back, there are also so many opportunities now that we thought were massive opportunities that weren't, and we invested too much time or money in them that didn't pull through, even now. So failure teaches you the nuance of when to make the right judgment, of when something is good for you and when something is bad for you. Somebody could tell you, but actually going through that experience will tell you. And it's as important to be hardworking and to push through the difficult times to succeed as it is to actually be able to know when to call it quits and move on, because we have finite time. So you want to spend your time doing the things that bring you joy and that are going to add value and that will bring you a return as well.
Now, talking about failure, when was one time where you felt, goodness, now I have fallen flat on my face, and how did you sort of pick yourself up? And thinking about family, was it easy to talk to your family, friends, parents about the failure that you had just experienced?
Recently, we had within the agency, we had a major client that had their budgets pulled. We were but we had an agreement in place to have a very big budget over a 12-month period, and then that just disappeared with no notice. And it was a massive part of our covering our monthly overheads with our team. And that was extremely challenging and tough, because what most agencies would have done is they would have retrenched the part of their team to make sure that they could accommodate that. We didn't want to do that. And so we looked at, it was extremely stressful kind of 2-3 week period, looked at every single option for how do we get out of that. And we were honest with our team, and we told them what was happening. We told them the measures that we were going to take. And they all got on board and supported us, and we pulled out of that. And as a business, we are stronger now than ever. And then having that conversation with my wife is very easy. She's incredibly supportive. And I'll tell you a funny story. My daughter and my son have both heard me talk about financial issues at different times in their lives, and both of them have tried to start a little business to make money to help me. So my daughter took all her toys and clothes and she put it into the garage, and she wanted to open up a shop to help me, which is awesome and heartwarming, but it's great. Yeah,
that is incredibly cute. Are you the type of dad, or are you both the type of parents to sort of dictate to your kids? Is there something specific that you want them to follow in terms of career, or you are more easygoing, let them find their own rhythm, let them find what it is that makes them tick?
Be interesting to ask my children that. I think we're quite strong in terms of the values and the character that we want them to develop. So there are non-negotiables. Like, they need to respect people, they need to greet people, they need to have good attitudes. And we know that kids aren't perfect, so it's doing that firmly and gently. But in terms of what they become, that's really up to them. And I think it's our job as parents to really support them and to foster that curiosity in life and to expose them to things. And if they're interested in something, support that and push them, because they're all unique and they're all different. And it's helping them discover who they are, which they will only discover, when they get, around 20 or whenever. I'll give you a nice example. My son, it's his 9th birthday today. For about a year now, he's been wanting a dirt bike. And so we've been quite resistant to it because, it's not safe. But he's just been on and on about wanting this dirt bike. So we said to him, okay, cool, Sam, you can have a dirt bike, but you need to show us that you're responsible enough to have that dirt bike. And then you need to earn your own money to buy it yourself. And you need to buy the gear and the petrol and all of that. So being a young, naive, determined 9-year-old, or he was 8 years old, he's said yes, he's fully on board on it. So what's great about that is he's going to learn when he buys his own dirt bike how to manage risk and responsibility, and to show us that he's responsible. But at the same time now, he started a little biltong business. So we're making biltong, we're selling it to friends, families, neighbors. He's earning decent money. And so he'll be able to buy a dirt bike in about 4 or 5 months. But what I love about this example that we're teaching him is that if he wants something, it's easy. And I think that's what the challenge that a lot of us have with money and with opportunity is that it's impossible. It's not easy to get there. And what I want to instill in my children is that if there's something that you want, figure out a way to do it. It's possible, and you can make it and make it happen, and you can get it. Yeah, so those are the kinds of lessons that we try and teach.
I know a lot of entrepreneurs really grind in their businesses, they grow their businesses, and what I hear often is, my business is my retirement plan. What are your thoughts? How do you think around retirement as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of true. And the reason why I think so, and it's a risk, it's good and a bad, because as an entrepreneur, cash flow is one of the biggest challenges, and you're always looking for opportunity to grow. So instead of us, Ryan and myself, pulling money out of our business, we invested back into our business to keep growing it, or into other businesses to keep on growing it. And I've actually, one of our businesses I've often said is my retirement fund. I can get that up and going, and that's the return. But I think there's a potential problem there, because you never know what's going to happen. And as you know, you need to diversify. So you always need to put money into a property or into different funds, and to try and grow that. But we are backing ourselves as entrepreneurs, and the return that you can get from your hard work and your effort and being smart and getting things right is probably a lot higher than you can in other areas. And so it's managing that and knowing whether it's a wise investment or not. So I am specifically backing myself in my businesses to be the bigger retirement fund, but we have always been putting money away and saving and investing as well.
What are some of your fears still? around money specifically?
So I don't think I have too many fears about money, and I think it's because I'm at a level where if I lost everything, I knew I could bounce back. I was thinking, at COVID when we got hit, we pretty much had about 60% of our income disappear within a day, and we had a full complement of our staff that we wanted to retain and keep. And then I was scenario thinking, what happens if we lose everything? And the solution I came up with, it wouldn't be too bad. I just need like an old combi, and we can homeschool the kids, and we can live on the street, and we can make it super fun, and we could turn it into an adventure, and I'll create a documentary about it.
I don't know if your wife would be happy about that.
No, yeah, well, she's resilient to some ideas when she comes around to them. But I don't think there's a massive fear, because I've gone through that fear and have come out better on the other side of it. So it's that confidence through achievement, kind of like the Springboks have in rugby now, that after watching them beat the All Blacks, they have that belief in themselves from that continued success when it's been toughest.
Very true. And now, looking at the entrepreneurship landscape in South Africa, like you mentioned earlier, it is hard. But what are some of the lessons, maybe two, that if an entrepreneur is listening or someone is just starting to venture out, what are the key lessons that they can learn from you?
So I think looking at a business, you need to be very good with people, and you need to be very good with money. And most times people aren't very good with money because it hasn't been taught, and they don't understand the practicalities of it. You've got to bring money in, but you also need to manage your money and your expenses. And I always tell my team, the easiest way for us to make money is to not spend it. And when you look at an expense, multiply it by 12 for a year. So if you tell me that you want to employ somebody, that's call it 20 grand a month. It's not 20 grand a month. It's $250,000. It's 240,000 rand a year that you're committing to. And to cover that expense, you need to earn R1 million. So can we earn R1 million? Do you want to work that extra time? Because essentially, time is linked to money. So the more that you spend, the less time that you have, and the more that you need to bring in and earn. And so it's not about the massive turnovers that you can get in. It's about how efficient you can be with the cash that you bring in and make more profit. It's managing that cash to become a lot more effective.
You did mention you didn't want to go through the BCom route, to get into business. And clearly, numbers are extremely important in a business. How long did it take you to fully grasp just how important numbers, balance sheet, cash flow, income statements, and how to really be able to quantify what it means in your business? How long did it take you to get the hang of that?
It took me a lot longer than it should have because I'm not a maths guy. And I started my company when I was 27, and I came from quite a junior position where I wasn't taught really well. And I'd been working my whole life and hadn't studied finance, and I wish that I did. I think if you have a CA behind you, that's extremely valuable. However, you don't need that. It's understanding key principles. And I could probably teach somebody in an hour what they need to know to be successful in business. It's understanding the small things. But because I didn't have mentorship or guidance, I learned those lessons through making mistakes. It's actually very simple. You're bringing cash in, you're making sure that you're spending as little as possible, and whatever's left over is your profit. And I know that's very simplified, and there's a lot that goes into it, but essentially that's it. And it's how you can scale that to grow. But my advice would be, learn finance, understand finance, and start little businesses, because that's where you learn it as well. And those little businesses as well, even if they're a little side hustle like my son's, you can bring in 10 grand a month, becomes 120 grand a year. It's R1 million over a decade. And those little things of managing your costs and your expenses, that's what you really need to. Those are the fundamentals. And then you get into other areas as well, taxes and that, which are scary.
And now, Jason, what do you still hope for yourself in the next 5 years or even the next 10 years?
So my wife will say less work, more family time, and I would agree with that. But I think what excites me is creating things and making value out of things. And it's not so much, I'm not chasing money, but I'm chasing doing something that is positive and successful. So within our businesses, it's grown all those businesses. Personally, I've got a couple books in me for kids' books because I love science and biology and chemistry and cosmos and want to inspire kids around that. And so I need to get AI to help me design the book. We've written it. And a whole bunch of kind of educational elements as well, because that is fundamentally important, I think, to children, is to inspire them about the world around them. And I think it's just been successful within business and life. And within 5 to 10 years, honestly, I would like to get to a position where I don't have to work anymore. And work is just kind of a reward, and you're doing something that you love.
When you started your businesses, were you thinking actively about, goodness, I'm starting this so that I can make money?
Yes. And that's kind of the worst thing to do. Because if you're doing something just to make money, you're not doing it for the passion, and it can be a killer because there's stress that comes with it. And you've got to enjoy the stress, and you've got to enjoy the process of what you're doing. It can't just be about the money. And I know people are built differently. But, it's finding something that you're passionate about and that you enjoy the process of doing, and then knowing how to make money of that and being smart about that. When I started my business, we also thought that it would be super successful and super easy, but we were clueless, and that cluelessness came down to financials, yeah.
Would you say that you are proud of yourself, where you are, just your family life, the career that you've built and the businesses that you've built?
That's a very deep question. And I think there definitely are moments. I think I'm proud of my marriage and my family and my kids. And in business, it's different. There are elements that I'm certainly proud of, but you have ambition and you have comparisons, and not comparisons around what people have, but around what you want to achieve and what you want to get to. And I think most people that are quite driven always have goals, and you get to that goal, and then you look up and what's the next goal, and you don't take time to take stock of that. I'm satisfied, but there's still that burning ambition that is driving and wanting to leave some kind of legacy or mark and know that you've achieved. Often if you're in sports, you can set a record or you can hit a milestone. In life and business, you don't have that necessarily, or you don't have that big celebration around it. So I don't celebrate those, and I think that's something that people should do. And maybe I will now, because you've asked me the question.
There we go. I'm glad that I've inspired that. But I mean, you should definitely be incredibly proud of yourself. And thank you so much for being here, sharing your nuggets with other entrepreneurs out there.
Thank you, Mapalo. I've enjoyed it.
This was a Sasfin Wealth podcast. Visit sasfin.com/wealth for more information.